Come. So incredibly much to get to. Good to be with you, Tony Katz. The name of the show is Tony Katz today. Smoking only because I got the deal. This is the Oliva Serie V Milanio. Now, this is not the Maduro that I'm smoking here. This is the all-weather cigar. Anytime, any place, anywhere. You can't go wrong. We will cut that with my rare pink Arturo Fuente cutter. And we'll get to the show. I'm glad you guys are here. Let's begin.
I think these numbers are really illuminating on this topic because I just think there's such a clear trend among the American public. So transgender female athletes in women's sports, only 18% of the country says that they should be, in fact, allowed to participate in women's sports. Compare this to the opposition. I mean, my goodness gracious, 79%. You rarely get 79% of the country to agree on anything, but they do, in fact, agree on the idea of opposing transgender female athletes in women's sports. But
they agree that men are not women and women are not men, Harry Enton of CNN. That's why you have 79%. The fact that you don't have 100% is the problem. That we had to have an executive order in place to make this statement clear that men are not women and women are not men, to say out loud that it is the policy of the United States to rescind all funds from educational programs that deprive women and girls of fair athletic opportunities, which results in the endangerment, humiliation, and silencing of women and girls and deprives them of privacy. It shall also be the policy of the United States to oppose male competitive participation in women's sports more broadly as a matter of safety, fairness, dignity, and truth. That not everybody is on board with that. That's the problem. Tony Katz today. What are you doing, everybody? 833-GOT-TONY, 833-468-8669, 833-GOT-TONY. President Trump signing yesterday the executive order. And not just signing it in style with a bit of presentation that the left cannot compete with. The left will not be able to compete with this moment where Donald Trump has all of these girls on stage, all of these women on stage, and he sits down at his table there where he's going to sign it, and then he just turns to these girls and says, "Hey, if you want to come watch this, that's fine."
Sit down, please. Thank you. Thank you so much. Everybody, thank you. You know, if you'd like to gather around me, I think I'm going to be okay. Come on.
If you want to gather around me, I think I'm going to be okay.
Secret Service is worried about them. If we have to worry about them, we have big problems. Okay, you want to do this? Watch what I do, and then I'm going to give you some pens, okay? Are you ready?
He's got these kids all around him. And he's like, "Oh, we'll get to the pen. You're going to get a pen. You're going to get a pen." It's like Rodney Dangerfield in Caddyshack. Give me 2 of those. Give me 6 of those. Give a couple of naked lady tees. You'll get a pen, and you'll get a pen. He's half Rodney. He's half Oprah. And he's signing the thing, and here they are, all surrounding him, all happy to be there.
Ready? What a nice picture this is, huh, Governor? You ready? We'll do a good job. Wait, let me press that. I want to make this a really good signature because this is a big one, right?
Oh, I think we have a 10. We have a 10.
God bless you, Mr. President.
And what you hear is some girl say, God bless you, Mr. President. If you haven't seen the photo, there's actually a version of this in black and white. Always makes it more nostalgic. The political left has zero. They have absolutely nothing in their entire playbook that can keep up with this. Nothing. They don't have anything to counter it. All they have is Cory Booker screaming about how Donald Trump is a bully. Like, this is the best they can do. Put together some nonsense pseudo-intellectual protests at state capitals yesterday. They don't even know what they're protesting. Elon Musk is stealing our paychecks. No, he's not. He's stealing our money. No. He's taking a look at who is, though, and very much the political left seems very opposed to that. But let's hold on that. And let's go back to what it is we saw with the signing of this executive order yesterday. It is sinful, obscene that there are people still opposed to this. It is obscene that there are people out there who want to tell you that boys can be girls or girls can be boys, and girls have to participate with boys in these kinds of organized sports, and they have to take a back seat to them. The people who are in favor of this are gross, and the people who have fought it have fought a very long road. I do not put myself in that category of the latter. I've discussed it, but I've discussed it here from my studio, from the microphone, and I don't say it's good to bring up. I was more than happy to discuss it honestly and openly and clearly and with focus. But I am not Riley Gaines, and I am not Billboard Chris. You know, Billboard Chris is. I first met him at CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference, a couple of years ago. Chris is a guy who would put on like a sandwich board, basically, you know, a billboard, right? There's a message in front of him, a message behind him. It's like two pieces of wood and over the shoulders. And he'd engage with these radical progressives who don't believe in science and who believe that they should be allowed to physically intimidate anybody they disagree with because they're good and decent, about how what's happening to these boys and these girls is wrong. Chemical castration, the mutilation, the issues with the lie about, well, it's just a puberty blocker. You can go off it at any time. It's totally reversible. No, it's not. It was never reversible. You were delaying puberty in children at a time where it happens. You think somehow that gets corrected so quickly? Of course not. It never gets corrected in way too many cases. He was out there standing on a street corner, basically alone, moving a message. And Riley Gaines, the swimmer, had to swim against Leah Thomas, who is a man, who now you've got former classmates there, former athletes at University of Pennsylvania suing to ensure that Leah Thomas, by the way, he can call himself whatever he wants. He wants to call himself Leah, he can call himself Leah. Wants his entire record expunged because this was a fraud that the university perpetrated, and it was abusive to the athletes, these women who were supposed to compete against women. Riley Gaines fought this fight from ground zero, became the voice of this fight, and didn't cower from it, didn't shy away from it, leaned in and said, I'm in, and I will take the slings and arrows. She did it with aplomb, she did it with style, and she did it with grace. And they chased her down the halls at universities to try and physically attack her, to intimidate her, to keep her from speaking on college campuses, and it didn't work. These people deserve your respect. They deserve your admiration. All of it. They did this. They inspired others to do this. I'm a guy on the radio. I'm glad I could have the conversations. I feel good that I was able to share it with you. I certainly have never backed down, but I didn't do what they did. And if I was wearing a hat, my hat would be off to the both of you. Because what you did is tremendous. And the fact that people out there are angry about it, well, some people are broken. I argue that it is important that we do not give them any chance to regroup or reset or have a say in our civil society. The people who want to push the idea that a boy can be a girl can be a boy, they can decide their own gender, they should be allowed to have surgeries that mutilate them, and then have the audacity to refer to it as gender-affirming care. Those people should not be allowed to have a seat at the table. They have to be voted out. Their proxies have to be voted out. That's school boards, that's local city council elections, that's mayoral elections, that's state houses, that is governor's mansions, that is Congress, the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They can have zero authority. You're going to hear me discuss a lot that I think people are getting into this false sense of security with Trump. And look, he's winning here, and look, he's winning there, and the Elon Musk stuff and the Doge stuff. Like they don't have to pay attention anymore. I am telling you right now, paying attention is more important than ever. Because everything can go south quick. And when people get complacent, you know what we get? DEI in schools. That's what happened. Your kid's elementary school, your kid's middle school, your kid's high school was verboten to this stuff. If these things happen, they happened in college, but you were trusting of your local educational place. And you know what they did? They broke the rules. They broke the contract. And they went after your kids. And when you said, hey, these are my kids, they said, you shut up, you racist, bigot, homophobe. You're not qualified to teach children. Oh my gosh, you can't even show up at school board meetings. You can't say this. Why are you threatening that one? And the Department of Justice under Joe Biden said, we got to make sure that these people don't go after school board members, these bigots, these domestic terrorists. They called you domestic terrorists for standing up to your children or for your children. They called you domestic terrorists for standing up for your children. Do you know how that happened? You trusted the schools. I don't mean to call you out. We all did. We had a contract. We had a deal. And they broke the deal. And when we said, hey, you broke the deal, they said, shut up, you bastard. You don't get to have a say. You don't have an option. You're not trained. You're not qualified. And then they took the DOJ and said, how can we shut these people up? And that's what happens when you don't pay attention. So I don't want people getting into some level of false sense of security. We didn't pay attention. And these people decided they could tell our young children, our boys that they are girls, our girls that they are boys, that they could be purposefully confused, and then they could keep that information from us. We said no. And then they called us bigots, and then they turned to gender-affirming care, and then they tried to create legislation in places like Washington State and others that they could take our children from us, putting parents in this incredibly horrific position. They know what's going on with their kid is messed up in many, many cases, but they're just trying to hold on for dear life. And if they say too much, the state will actually get involved and possibly take their children. Their children were used against them. I feel for those parents every day. And then I'm lectured to by Lady Gaga about our trans youth. Lady Gaga, you're just wrong. As a matter of fact, you're engaged in something pretty hateful if you think confusing children is good and valuable. They're not your little monsters. They're the children of parents all across America, and what you are feeding them is simply outrageous. It's despicable. You are not kind. You are not being decent, and you are not being good. You are ruining children under this guise of being loving. Do you want to debate that? Because I'll gladly do it. But it should also be noted that you're losing this argument, thank goodness. Because people like Billboard Chris and people like Riley Gaines, against every odd, said this isn't right. Against every threat, said this isn't right. Against every attack, said this isn't right. And parents and others all across the country said this isn't right. And so now we have this. Donald Trump surrounded by young women hearing this executive order that protects them. And then Trump being Trump, he handed out pens.
Good. Now you're going to go out and win those events, right? Nice to see you all. Great going, everybody. Nice to see you. Thank you, kids. Here.
It was a good day yesterday. And the only way we continue to have good days is to keep up the fight. Do not get complacent. The work is just beginning. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. Guys, good to be with you. Oh, sorry, I still had that on the screen. Just putting out a post right here. Ed Marcy is going to be joining us. This Politico story, this obscenity. Sorry. I should have had this done before. I know. Also, I've been commenting on the haircut. I had these little flyaways. So I cut it myself. There's like one strand left over. That is not how you should not do that. I don't know why I cannot get a good haircut. It's driving me nuts. I'm going to go back. Lovely person, just not the haircut for me. I think that's an understatement. Good to be with you guys. Checking out The comments, did I miss the live? No, you didn't miss the live. We're right here. What's going on? How you doing? Good to have you here, Rick. And Kenneth, just wanted to tell you that I enjoy your show. I can't always listen to you in real time, but I'm glad you have a podcast and that you record. I can listen to it when I can. Keep up the good work. Kenneth, I will. Thank you so very, very much. I appreciate that. What is that, Producer Landon? 20 seconds. Fantastic, then. There's a lot to get to. Ed Morrissey is going to join us. This whole Politico story, infuriating. Absolutely infuriating. I will get to that. In the meantime, we're going to come back to the show. Glad you guys are here. Let's do the thing. Gavin Newsom, who is heading to meet with President Trump, or did he meet with him yesterday at the White House, wants you to know that what we need to do is we need to rebuild California with science in mind, but not just any science.
You previously mentioned the timeline for rebuilding would be 6 to 9 months. Is that going to happen? And should people rebuild in some parts of California, given how high the fire risk
Yeah,
is?
you can't rebuild the same. So we have to rebuild with science. We have to build with climate reality in mind. We have to look at infrastructure, redundancy, systems, ingress, egress as it relates to emergency management and planning, materials. All of that is being reviewed and reconsidered, and with the latest iterations in terms of understanding and technology. And I say technology in the context of how, again, we build the infrastructure to keep it safe, to address undergrounding of lines.
Californians are so screwed, but they had to know this. Tony Katz today. What's going on, everybody? The people in Pacific Palisades are not going to be able to rebuild their homes. They're going to be told, nope, sorry. No, you can't rebuild your house. No, we won't allow that house anymore. No, we won't allow this. We won't allow that. It's best if you just sell us your land. Oh, no, you can't build that. You see, that kind of piece of property is because of zoning. It's going to need some multifamily housing or low-income housing on there. It's what we're going to need right there. Oh, no, maybe you're best off selling us your land. And then they'll change the rules for some developer brother-in-law, make themselves a couple of $1 billion, and no one will live there at all. Not the people who've been there for 50 years, 60 years, lost their homes. We don't know their politics. Well, they lived in California. They knew the risk. Admittedly, they had to know the risk. If you ever lived in California, I did for 6 years, and you drive down Mulholland or Topanga Canyon, you knew the risk. You watched it. You looked at it like, this is gorgeous. Somebody lights a match, everybody's going to die. You know how many times I said that to my wife? All the time. We still live there. Everybody knew it, and anybody who says they didn't know it is just lying. But now they're going to see what happens when you vote for progressives, because progressives are totalitarian. They are the authoritarians. Progressives gave money to Politico, $32 million, and then they would engage in so-called reporting that would push narratives against Trump and in favor of progressives. And yet they call Trump the fascist. They're going to take the land in California. They are already laying the groundwork. You cannot rebuild. I moved out. I almost bought a house. It didn't go through because I had a deal not go through, and it would have been a great house there in Simi Valley. It would have been spectacular. And while I was destroyed at the time, the level of lucky I am that it didn't happen, whew, goodness gracious. Ed Morrissey up next. Keep it here. This is Tony Katz Today. Look at that. Well, look at that. Wow. Look. It's Ed Morrissey, kids. Wait, what's better, that or this?
Whatever you like.
That or
I'm
this?
good.
That or this? That or this?
Am I at the eye doctor? What's going on here?
One? I'm gonna go with that. I don't know. Sarah, you tell me. I don't know if Sarah's watching or not. How are you, man?
I'm good. I'm good. You know, I've got this this little respiratory thing that's been going around. So I'm hoping that I don't have to hack up a lung while I'm talking to you today. But yes,
Everybody and their mother. So you know, I work with Fingers Malloy, the great Fingers Malloy, Eat Drink Smoke, eatdrinksmokeshow.com. He was laid up for days with the flu. Days with the flu. And I have a bunch of friends now who are sick. I had a lingering cold. I'm still blowing my nose a little, you know, but that's about it.
yeah. My wife had it worse than I did, but we've had it for a couple weeks.
Sure. Throw her under the bus.
Yeah.
Me, I'm strong like bull, but my wife, super weak. Couldn't handle a flu. I said, oh, that's too bad. Now, where's my dinner? Is that how it went?
Fix me my sandwich.
My gosh. Kitchen floor is cold. You're barefoot. You're welcome. That should cool you down from that fever. Hey, welcome to the Sexism Podcast. I'm Tony Katz. That's Ed Morrissey. But she's all right.
Yeah, she's immune suppressed because she's a transplant patient, and so these things linger with her all the time. It's always an issue. So yeah, still having it. So,
and look at me, I'm just making fun of everything. I
want to lay that guilt trip on. I want to lay that guilt trip on you, Tony.
You know we're live streaming, right? I just want to make sure we're clear. You're just letting that loose to the world. I didn't know if you wanted to keep anything, you know, private or quieter.
It's fine. I've written about it. I've talked about it.
It's a bit late for that.
Did I mention that I've lost my hair recently? I mean,
I didn't notice. I just thought it was a glare.
Who's that?
Well, while we've got 60 seconds before we get to it. I'm not crazy. Politico exists because of taxpayer dollars. True or false?
Well, I think that they're surviving on it. It's not USAID grant money, by the way. I don't believe it's coming from USAID. It's actually coming from a bunch of different federal bureaucracies that are buying these incredibly expensive subscriptions for really no purpose whatsoever except to keep them afloat. And
that's what I want to get into because it's really incredible how the manipulation works. Because I think for a lot of people watching right now, and we're going to hear this when we get back to the radio show, they've never heard of these subscriptions. And they're going to say, whoa, what are you talking about? Wait until you find out how sophisticated they are in screwing you out of your money. You think that the mafia is something? They ain't got nothing. There are right now 3 guys on Arthur Avenue going, oh, bravo. Have you, Tommy, do you see what these people did over here? Freaking genius over here. My God. Unbelievable. And I think that understanding how that works is pretty imperative to the whole thing. It's incredibly important. And I want to make sure that we get into that. So stay right there. Ed Morrissey of hotair.com. He'll be joining us in a little bit. That a 5-second standby, and we will get to it. So glad you guys are here. See that little hair right there. So Caroline Levitt had to explain to people that what it is that we're seeing from Elon Musk is not a conflict of interest. Rather, what we're getting from Elon Musk is, well, this quasi agency that has been put together is looking into how payments work. And if Elon Musk should have some conflict.
So your colleague to your right, to my
Thanks,
left.
Caroline.
Yes.
Taylor with Spectrum News. You talked a bit about Doge. Elon Musk is currently a, quote, special government employee who also owns companies that have billions of dollars in federal contracts. You said earlier this week that he has abided by all applicable federal laws, but what steps is the Trump administration taking to address that conflict of interest?
The president was already asked and answered this question this week, and he said if Elon Musk comes across a conflict of interest with the contracts and the funding that Doge is overseeing, then Elon will excuse himself from those contracts. And he has, again, abided by all applicable laws. In the back left, go ahead.
Now, you're going to hear me get into this conversation about how one should keep an eye on what Elon Musk is doing. But one should also be aware that what is happening is what got voted for. In order to clean a house, you actually have to clean it. Tony Katz today, good to be with you. Well, in cleaning the house, we learned that USAID, this Agency for International Development, was doing a little bit more than developing internationally. It was spending a fair amount of dollars domestically, including on Politico and the New York Times and a host of others. Ed Morrissey joins me right now. He is the capo di tutti capo over at hotair.com. That's where you find him. His book, Going Red, is a fantastic read on how elections are won on the granular level, how counties make the decisions for states, and really solid advice if you're thinking about running or want to understand how the election process goes. You've been writing about this, and I want to make sure that we understand and we start from a baseline. What we are seeing, Ed, is we are seeing that this agency that we are told exhibits our soft power around the globe, this agency that we are told by Democrats is the single most important thing to keeping Americans safe, this agency, as we are told it, that if we didn't have it, we would all die as a species. This agency is more important than the Constitution itself or the love of a mother to a child. This agency gave Politico $32 million, the New York Times $3 million, and the BBC $3 million. What's the story here?
Well, first off, I think some of the money that we're talking about with Politico didn't come from USAID. At least some of the money didn't come. Some of the money just came from other executive branch agencies, such as the FDA, through what's known as a Politico Pro subscription service, which is a sort of a concierge analysis service that Politico offers. And the cost of this, according to the numbers that we're seeing on this, is roughly $12,000 a year. That's a pretty expensive subscription. You can get a LexisNexis subscription, which is much more comprehensive, includes a lot of law data, as well as media reporting, for about 1/6 that cost. And even that's pretty expensive. I mean, the LexisNexis thing's pretty expensive. We used to have a subscription to that. It was sort of an enterprise subscription. We ended up canceling it because we just didn't feel like there was enough value to it. So the argument here is that they're buying a legitimate service. These are not grants. Now, the BBC one was a USAID grant. Part of the New York Times money was a grant, and I think some of the money that went to Politico came from USAID. But I think the bigger issue here is these Politico Pro subscriptions for a publication that's actually focused on covering the same agencies that are buying these subscriptions, right? So for instance, at the FDA, there was 37 of these active subscriptions at the FDA for $12,000 a pop annually. They spent $443,000 on a subscription service that is designed to give people the inside skinny in Washington, D.C., as though the Food and Drug Administration wouldn't already have access to that type of information. It raises the question as to what the purpose of these subscriptions were. Was it to get this sort of inside concierge analysis of what was going on in Washington, D.C. by the power brokers in Washington, D.C.? Or was it a way to keep Politico on their side in terms of coverage?
This is where I jump in, because I specifically asked you before we started to get into this subject. For everybody who is hearing this for the first time and how this worked and is saying to themselves, oh my gosh, there's no way to describe the anger that you should truly feel when you realize exactly how they play the game, how they engage this grift, and how they steal. Because I don't care what they say. Everybody who is anybody understands that this was a way to give a political contribution or to get a purposeful political contribution and engage a payoff. Every person in America, regardless of what they know about politics, everybody who saw that the sweetheart deal that Hunter Biden was going to get before it blew up knew that this was an absolutely sweetheart deal and despicable, and that nobody else who lied on a federal form to purchase a firearm would ever have gotten that deal. Everybody knew it. It doesn't matter what corner of the world they came from. And everybody knows it here, that this is how Politico and other groups get around some level of rule. But we're just offering this special service at this high price. By the way, you can get Ed Morrissey's personal hot air blog for $42,000 a month. Just send him an email and he will personally read it to you while you sleep, right into your ear.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to set up that. I mean, I don't know whether I'll get even one subscription out of it, but I'm willing to give it a try, Tony.
But if you do get one, it's going to be a heck of a one.
I owe you a steak dinner. If I get one of those subscriptions, I owe you at least one steak dinner.
Correct.
The FDA was sending $443,000 a year to Politico. What type of coverage do you think Politico was going to do on the FDA? That's
$443,000.
$443,000 a year for those subscriptions. 37 subscriptions was an outlay, and this is in the records that Doge has pulled up. 1 year, $443,000 from the FDA to Politico for Politico Pro subscriptions, 37 of them concurrently. Now, maybe there's value of somebody in the FDA being able to keep their tabs on what Politico Pro is saying about the FDA. I don't know that it would really make that much difference, but arguably, maybe there's some value to that. But why would you need 37 of them at a time? Why would every agency, or I don't know if it's every agency, but obviously a multitude of agencies have a multitude of these subscriptions to where they're giving Politico $8 million a year, and Politico is covering all of these agencies for the rest of their readership without disclosing that they're getting this money from these agencies. There has been no disclosure that I'm aware of on any of their stories about the FDA that the FDA was sending them $443,000 a year in subscription fees. Now, that is a conflict of interest. It's a massive conflict of interest. And it is much bigger deal than having one subscription or having a $20 a month subscription. This is a wealth transfer to a supposedly independent media outlet.
Wealth transfer or wink and a nudge. See, wealth transfer could make you think that it was a government program. Talking to Ed Morrissey of hotair.com. But this is far more duplicitous than that, and I don't think I want to give that part of it short shrift.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with you on that. It's very duplicitous. It's duplicitous on the part of both parties here, because Politico wasn't disclosing these payments. They weren't disclosing the fact that they were getting $8 million a year in subscription fees from the agencies that they're supposed to cover. And that has to be something that's disclosed to their readership. You see other people say, well, Marjorie Taylor Greene had a subscription, which she did apparently. She had one subscription. I would question the judgment of that, but perhaps what she's looking for out of this is information that Politico might be generating on the regulatory agencies, thinking that they are doing a disinterested dive in this. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene can defend this all she wants. I think it was a stupid decision, but she wasn't paying for 37 of them at a time.
Talking to Ed Morrissey at hotair.com. So this is kind of what some of these reports look like here. This is the New York Times, and it shows the award type. It's
that's a grant
the company and contracts $3.1 million. So this is $3.1 million. that went to the New York Times. Is what we're seeing here, because this also happened with the BBC.
BBC, yeah, the
and others.
spend a lot of money, yeah.
Are we in the official place of scandal here?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no reason for a government agency to be sending $3 million to the New York Times without everybody disclosing this, right? I mean, this is the big issue. The New York Times isn't disclosing this. The BBC didn't disclose it as part of their reporting. So if they're reporting on USAID and they're not disclosing that they are recipients of money from USAID, then that is a journalistic scandal at the very least. We can get into the decision-making of those grants. Now, those that you just mentioned were actual grants from USAID. The thing that we were talking about earlier with Politico, I think there's some grant money that did go to Politico. I'd have to delve a little bit more deeply into that. But what we're talking about is this subscription service, money laundering thing. I mean, it's really what it looks like. Sam Stein.
So that I may not have split it into its component parts, right, doesn't take away from the whole. The whole thing is scandal. The subscription is absolutely trying to. I mean, that's how you engage in some level of price fixing in the concrete industry. I go back to my 3 Italians on a street corner. If they decide the price of concrete, they all go to jail. But you offer subscriptions, and you're getting paid by federal tax dollars. That's somehow normal. Far from it. Talking to Ed Morrissey of hotair.com. And yes, I do agree that this is a scandal. And we heard from Caroline Leavitt, if you didn't hear her being asked as the White House press secretary, being asked at the press briefing yesterday.
And I can confirm that the more than 8 million taxpayer dollars that have gone to essentially subsidizing subscriptions to Politico on the American taxpayers' dime will no longer be happening. The DOJ team is working on canceling those payments now. Again, this is a whole of government effort to ensure that we are going line by line when it comes to the federal government's books. And this president and his team are making decisions across the board on, do these receipts serve the interests of the American people? Is this a good use of the American taxpayers' money? If it is not, that funding will no longer be sent abroad, and American taxpayers will see significant savings because of that effort.
Which brings us to Ed.
I don't think the savings are really the issue here. I think the influence is really the issue here.
But
now they're casting it in terms of savings, and I understand why they're doing that. But it's the influence peddling that's really the issue here. It's the corruption that's the issue.
Undoubtedly true. She was in a place about saving about saving taxpayers, and that's part of DOJ's entire world, right? Department of Government Efficiency. Before I let you go, the people who are, this ties into Senator Cory Booker and a whole bunch of others screaming and yelling about what's happening at USAID. We're going to let this bully win, and we're going to fight them. They're fighting to keep institutions involved in this type of influence peddling alive and well in 30 seconds. Am I wrong? I mean, is this the image you want to send to America if you're the Democratic Party?
No, I think it's a huge mistake. I think them getting behind this, getting in front of this is a huge mistake, and I think they're going to get steamrolled because of it. There's one thing that that even left-wing commentators like Ryan Grimm are pointing out, which is that Congress could simply fund the things that they think are essential directly. They could pass it into statutes. Some of the stuff that USAID, in fact, falls into that category, and and Trump won't be able to shut that down without congressional action. Most of it, though, is discretionary by the bureaucrats that are running this thing, and that's the stuff that is absolutely crazy and has to get shut down.
Ed Morrissey, hotair.com. I appreciate you being with us. More is coming up. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. All right, Ed, I bring you back. Did you just unbutton a button?
I did.
Not done. And hello, ladies.
I'm done. Hey, baby.
Let's, first of all, don't ever do that again. So help me God. I think that was first of all, I appreciate it a lot, Ed. That was it's a lot of it. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
Because it's part of this story is confirmation that, they are absolutely working against us, because even agree or disagree with Politico and their analysis. The idea that they are quasi, if not quasi, but actually happening, government funded, is in every instance wrong, and everything that we see is un-American, and yet it was happening in multiple places. So the question is, you're now advising the Republican Party or advising the Democratic Party. How do you advise them to handle the situation?
Well, I think that this is interesting in terms of the previous argument being made by the left that the government needed to start funding journalism in order for journalism to survive. I don't know if you recall this.
I do.
That was a few years ago. It looks like what's happened is that the bureaucrats have decided to backdoor that and create the funding without letting people know. Sam Stein, I was about to mention that Sam Stein is arguing on Twitter today. Well, if they wanted to influence Politico, they would have bought advertising on Politico, which is an argument, except for the fact that it would have been very, very public, and people would have been asking why the FDA is spending $8 million a year on advertising.
I remember when we were told Sam Stein was the smart one, right?
Yeah, I have a post coming up later today about that. He and Hugh Hewitt went after it on Twitter briefly, and I decided, and there's some things I really wanted to restate about the scandal that's unfolding here. So it just gave me an opening to write one more post about this, to express just how bad this is. It is completely corrupt
in every way. So never mind that it has to end. You know, I asked you this, you know, we were texting yesterday, and I sent you this. I'm telling you that lawsuits have to happen, because if a member of the Politico team on nearly any level, I assume, I mean, they may not have known, so therefore it's hard. It is possible that a writer, a journalist for Politico, did not know that something was being funded. And I don't necessarily want to blame them if they didn't know. But like, Politico could very well, I think, be responsible for a misleading of the public, and that's defamation. I mean,
well, that's not really defamation. Defamation.
Then what word is it? What is the legalese?
Well, I don't even think that there's a legal case to be made here. That's a market case to be made here. And, you know, Jim Vandehei, who's one of the co-founders of Politico, was on Mediaite a couple of days ago saying that left-wing media has never been weaker. That post just went up at Hot Air. And I'm arguing the reason why is because they've been lying to people.
The idea that there's no legal argument here, I'm sorry. No. If I believe that you can at least make the argument that this is collusion. You can make the argument that this is an attempt by a government to defraud the public. You can make an attempt that this is buying a favor. I would argue, not being a lawyer, that there have got to be a lot of things on the books that one could utilize here. I don't know if I'm right, but man, I feel cheated and ugly and kind of left on the side of the road there, used, if there's no way to respond to this.
I don't think that there is, because you'd have to have standing in order to bring a lawsuit. You'd have to show that you were personally damaged by specific acts by the people who were colluding. Otherwise, it becomes a political matter and a market matter. And I think that's probably where it's best left. And I think that the market is actually delivering the impact that left-wing media has. I
do want it. I always want it to be the market, but you and I are I'm going to dig in. You and I are going to disagree. No. It's Harvey Keitel. Someone's got to go to jail. That's it's got to work. I got to run.
There's Raw Dogs. There's a Harvey Keitel in
not piano. It's not
Pulp
that.
Fiction. Not the piano. let's not go there.
Ed Marcy, I gotta go do radio, man. I'll catch you later. That's hotair.com. Ed Marcy right there. Good man. And by the way, I may not have the case, but this is disgusting what we saw, and I think for a lot of people, it's the first time they had heard that, and so I'm glad you were able to kind of dig in with us and get that done. We're getting back to the radio show right here. They have delayed the hearing of Kash Patel. Democrats delaying this a week. And I think it is weak. They want a second hearing. They shouldn't get a second hearing. In no way should they get a second hearing. But they want it. And the reason they want it is because they have to prove to their people that they're fighting Trump. Tony Katz today. What is going on? Good to be with you. And Kash Patel is going to be the FBI director. And they all know it's coming. But we can't have him. We can't have Kash Patel in charge. We're going to demand a second hearing so everybody knows how terrible he is. Pam Bondi is already the attorney general, and she's already making moves. Kash Patel is going to get confirmed. To not go forward with the confirmation is just cheap. But they're flailing because they have nothing they can hold themselves to. They can't protect women in sports, and they can't protect the truth. This is Tony Katz today. I should have said instead of they can't protect the truth, they can't speak the truth. That would have been better. All right, so you guys know that we've got the radio show going on as well. So right now we're in our radio break, and we're going to take the break right here as well. So stick around. I've got more streaming to do. Your comments, of course, I do see them, and I try to respond to them. And yes, Christopher, that was a reference to National Treasure, which I think is an excellent movie. And Harvey Keitel to Nicolas Cage. Someone's got to go to jail. That's just the way that is. So I'm glad you guys are here. I'll be right back if you don't mind. Just that easy. That's my fault. Dang it. Dang it. I have the board where I hit the audio, the sounds, and then I've got the actual streaming service. I use StreamYard, by the way, in case you were curious. There, my board is a Rode Podcaster Pro. It's what I use for radio. Mic is an RA27, and it is looking pretty beat up. I think I need a new one right there. I need a better arm. It's not the best arm. Aside from that, everything's perfect. We're coming back to the show? All right. I guess we're starting. Glad you guys are here. Smoke them if you got them. So did I read that you got a judge trying to keep Doge from doing their thing? I think that's what it was. That a judge has limited Doge's access to sensitive government payment system records. No part of me is surprised by this, but that's not the story. We'll get into the Doge story. Tony Katz today. What's going on, everybody? Good to be with you. Find it all at TonyKatz.com. Live streaming on Twitix, Tony Katz. On Facebook, Tony Katz Radio. And, of course, you can find us YouTube, Tony Katz. You can like, subscribe, follow, do all the things. As a matter of fact, you should. You should do all the things immediately. If not sooner, I'd greatly appreciate it. There's more coming out about USAID, including from Schellenberger, journalist Michael Schellenberger, who was one of the guys who had access to the original Twitter files, that USAID may have paid for Trump's impeachment effort. I'll go over that tomorrow and dig in. But a little bit about Kamala Harris. And I know what you're saying. Why, Tony? Would you give us anything regarding Kamala Harris? There we go. Because it's necessary. Because it's very, very necessary in two parts of context. Claims that she made and when she was running, and claims that others wanted to make for her. Because this plays very much into this USAID, Politico, New York Times, BBC thing, where millions of dollars were given to move agenda items, to move narrative. Misleading the American public, a fraud. And so when I argue with Ed Morrissey of Hot Air, and I accept his argument, how do I prove standing? These people worked to manipulate America. They worked overtime to manipulate America. They got paid to manipulate America. I don't know how there isn't some level of legal response here. To argue that the market should cancel these people, right? That no one should utilize the service. You can't trust Politico as far as you can throw Politico. Gone. I get that. I accept this. I concede the point. Right? I give on that. But how is there no recourse for what they did to us? What they did to America? You know how many people in some political argument over Thanksgiving in the House said, well, Politico said, you're going to tell me you can't trust Politico? No. And I want everyone who trusted Politico to apologize to the people they yelled at and screamed at all of those holiday dinners and family events and everywhere else, and at the water cooler and all that social media pounding of the keys. You allowed propaganda to take place. And how could anybody think that it's okay? And how can you not be just absolutely outraged by it and want some response that shows that we will not accept this in society? And you say to me, Tony, you're taking a little bit personal there, a little bit, maybe. Um, I brought this up before, and I'll get to it again. I'm in radio. Sure, we're live streaming this, and sure, I do events. I do all sorts of things. I enjoy it quite a bit. I've got coming up on April 17th. We're doing an event about Trump in the first 100 days, the American Reset. What it is Trump has done in these first 100 days. We're going to be comparing it to other presidencies, their first 100 days, how those things came to be. We're going to be engaging the history of it. And of course, we're going to pair it with bourbon because that's what I do. We got cigars afterward, food. April 17th, Kokomo, Indiana is where we're doing this. If you want me to bring it to your town, just ask. We can make that happen. But I'm a radio guy. And I'm an analog guy. In a digital world, I'm an analog guy, and that is no way to be. And radio is just getting the living snot kicked out of it. Podcasts, the streams, the bifurcation of content, and none of us get sweetheart deals from our like-minded friends in the government. None of us. And going back to the legal of it, if USAID was paying off Politico and the New York Times and the BBC for what one could assume is favorable coverage, I thought you could not enrich yourself from your position. Now, I might be stretching to say there's an emoluments clause case here. And some lawyer will be like, Tony, all right, I'll concede that too. I'm just saying. These people, the industry of radio is trying to figure it out. They're still providing the best product out there. I can't charge $10,000, $40,000, $80,000 for a subscription, but I will tomorrow. I don't know if I'll get it set up by tomorrow. I'm going to offer a subscription where I will call you and I will read you the news. And I want to see how many government agencies will write me a check for my expert analysis. Because clearly this is the way it works now. Or do I now have to hold myself to a standard? You can imagine the frustration. Joe Rogan is telling the story that Kamala Harris lied, to which you are not shocked nor surprised that Kamala Harris lied. What Rogan is saying, of course, the Joe Rogan podcast, and by the way, I have no anger towards Rogan or any podcast. Go get yours. Go make your money. Go do your thing. You're not getting an argument out of me. You do you. Go win. Absolutely. You know how you stop the other guy from punching you in the face? Punch back. Can't get angry when someone's doing well. No. Has nothing to do with how I do. Zero. Rogan is saying that Kamala Harris's campaign lied about him not making time for Kamala. Rather, they refused to commit to a time. They lied that he was unavailable. They claim that the Harris team claims that they sent somebody to view the set and make sure it was right. Joe Rogan's like, that never happened. That did not happen. Her team lying regarding her not going on the show. Now, there was this story out where when Trump went on Rogan and Harris was afraid of that. Is that the story? Producer Landon looked that up. Something like that. Like she was afraid. I never understood that. You weren't afraid, you were jealous that Donald Trump, anytime, day or night, can walk in front of a reporter, turn to the reporter and say, what do you got? What do you have for me? What question do you have? I'll answer it. I'll answer the questions right now. How many questions do you have for me? I'm totally in. He can do that anywhere. He can do that anytime. And it's It's not impressive to people who can talk. It's impressive when you are trying to tell us that Kamala Harris is some great political mind when she cannot engage a conversation at all. She cannot get the sentence out, which brings us to the story over there at CBS and 60 Minutes. The 60 Minutes story is that they purposefully edited audio, and they edited it so that she would not look like such an absolutely outrageous dope of a person, that they moved heaven and earth to try and sell us on this idea that she was competent and capable. But we all heard the word salads. We have heard every word salad that there is. It has been a joy to be able to share it, just to watch the embarrassment take place. So when 60 Minutes ran the interview, people noticed they ran two different versions. They ran a version that was concise, and they ran a version that was this word salad nonsense, this madness, absolute madness. Now, I happen to have the whole interview, right?
Okay. Yes.
But she sits down and
do whatever you
the
want.
whole
You know,
behind
I'm
the
fine
scene,
about
right?
that.
Every last bit of it.
Go on, whatever you need to do.
So if there's any
Okay.
foul language, it's coming from her. This is, as I said, unedited. When you make comparisons, the edited and the unedited, she sounds nutty. So when you take a look at the question from the interviewer, Bill Whitaker, and Bill Whitaker is asking what the U.S. could do to stop the war. This is regarding October 7th. Her answer was 140 words. What she wrote, what she said was, well, let's start with October 7th, because obviously what we do now must be in the context of what has happened. And as I reflect on a year ago, and that 1,200 people were massacred, young people at a festival, at a music festival, 250 hostages were taken, including Americans, women were brutally raped. And as I said then, I maintain Israel's right to defend itself. We would, and how it does so matters. And as we fast forward into what we have seen in the ensuing weeks and months, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. And we know that. And I think most agree this war has to end. And this has to be our number one imperative. And that has been our number one imperative. How can we get this war to end? That's how Kamala Harris, God, I just feel weird saying it. Shit. Ugh, good gosh. That's how she answered it. Here is how it played on the show. Well, let's start with October 7th. 1,200 people were massacred. 250 hostages were taken, including Americans. Women were brutally raped. And as I said then, I maintain Israel's right to defend itself. We would, and how it does so matters. Far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. This war has to end. Now, they took the rambling and tried to make it concise. Is that a manipulation? Yeah, it's close. Because you're not giving us the full context of the answer. This very much falls in line with, remember when the special counsel, Robert Hur, H-U-R was his last name, looking into the classified documents in Joe Biden's possession. He was vice president, and he had no business holding on to classified documents at all. And they were in offices, and they were at his home in Delaware, just strewn about the garage with his Corvette and his coke-addled son. And we don't have logs of who was visiting the Delaware residence at that time, because the Secret Service magically didn't have them, just like the Secret Service magically couldn't find out whose cocaine it was. It was Hunter's. Could not magically determine whose cocaine that it was. It was just shocking. Like, my gosh, there's this baggie here. I wonder how that happened. We know how that happened. Robert Hur, when said that Joe Biden was an old man with a poor memory, right? Paraphrasing, that's what he said. And what Republicans said was, give us the tapes. The Justice Department said, what? The tapes of the interview. We want to hear it. We want to hear how Joe Biden answered these questions. Well, no, you don't need to hear it. You got the transcript right here. Transcript right here. No, we want to hear it, because hearing it would give us context to exactly how much of an old man with a poor memory he is. And what Merrick Garland, the then Attorney General, stated was, well, this would give away information about how the Justice Department does investigations, and we simply can't have that. The context of how Joe Biden sounded, how Joe Biden answered, the level of feeble, the level of weak, the level of disconnected his answers would have gone a very long way to helping us understand earlier exactly the bad shape Joe Biden was in. Now, maybe not us, we understood it, but others. So when 60 Minutes engages this edit and then gets sued by Trump and company for $10 billion because you tried to give aid to a political candidate. You were giving support to one candidate over another, and CBS says, who do you think you are? This is who we think you are. You did this. That is an edit for the purpose of supporting Kamala Harris. What we needed was the context of how she answers the most critical issues of the day. And you didn't want to give that to us. After seeing this, I think CBS has got a real problem. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. Sorry, I didn't mean to make that repeat on you. Appreciate the comments right here. I don't remember that one, Freddie. Meet the Press, where Trump said he wasn't going to get paid since back in 2016. I'll believe you. I just don't recall. That being the case. And sorry, Wendy. Every now and then I play Kamala Harris's laugh. It's just what I do. Absolutely what I do. Speaker Johnson is going to meet with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He is not speaking at the Capitol. He did that last year because he was invited by then Speaker Pelosi. So it goes back a while. Speaking of Pelosi, I got some world-class audio for you. That's coming up next when we get back to the radio show. Keep it right here. I thought we were coming back. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I thought we were coming right back there. I thought we were coming. It was the most recent interview, Freddie? No, I did not know that. But by the way, has anybody found out what Chuck Todd's going to go do? Furthermore, has anybody watched Jim Acosta's show? Former CNN, now on Substack. I've been doing this push via social media. That midnight to 2 a.m., right? They offered Jim Acosta midnight to 2 a.m. and Jim Acosta said no on CNN. I said, I'll do it. With everything else I'm doing, I will do it. I will make that show fantastic. So I've been working on this via the social channels. I don't know if that's going to work, but we'll see. Let's get back to the radio show, shall we?
Like I, Governor Reynolds, let's learn more about the state. Do you know what percentage of Iowans are white and what percentage are Black?
I don't know the exact percentages. No, we're by far a larger percentage of white population.
That's correct. Iowa is 90% white and only 4.5% Black. So that is drastically different from the national population. So when Republicans suggest Iowa should be a national model, they're advocating for a government that doesn't reflect our country. So let's talk about what this model, like Iowa. Governor Reynolds, let's look.
Is a country reflected, by the way, on exact proportion, or is it reflected on attitude and sentiment? I'm not 100% sure there, but this is about the constant refrain, as you hear Ayanna Pressley there from Massachusetts. Iowa's too white, so therefore it can't be first in the nation when it comes to caucuses or primaries. This has been a conversation going on for forever about whether or not Iowa should be first in the nation. Well, someone's going to be first. Democrats, as you saw, wanted to be South Carolina. I can't say that it matters to me whether it's South Carolina or Iowa. I can say it is despicable to say these people can't be first because they're too white. If that is not bigoted, what exactly is bigoted now? If that's not the bigotry, what is bigotry? I think it's a legitimate question. Isn't that exactly what Ayanna Pressley is involved in here? Because it seems to me that's exactly what she's involved in here. An incredible amount of bigotry and hatred and bile. If you want to say that that's not what she's saying, well, then what's your argument? Let me know on Twitix at Tony Katz. Oh, I'd love to hear this. More radio show coming up. This is Tony Katz Today. And with that, thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it quite a bit. We'll be back. Yeah, we're back tomorrow, aren't we? Yeah, no, I think we're live streaming tomorrow. I think we got that. That's the plan, at least. Glad you're here. I appreciate it quite a bit. Don't forget to subscribe in all the places, right? So YouTube, Tony Katz, go subscribe. Twitter X, go follow. Instagram, Tony Katz, do that. And then Facebook, Tony Katz Radio. If you would, I'd greatly appreciate it. Go check me out over there. I got to run. I will catch you guys tomorrow